Okay, so you want to own a medieval watermill. You already know the picture. A mossy stream, a great wooden wheel turning in the current, beams whitened with flour dust, and peasants queuing at your door with sacks on their shoulders. And this business comes with something almost no business in history ever had. Your customers are required by law to walk through your door. It's called suit of mill. Everyone living on the Lord's land must grind their grain at the Lord's mill. No competitors, no advertising, no haggling. On paper, this is the most perfect business of the medieval world. Now watch the scene that ruins the picture. The year is 1331 in the town of St Albans. The abbey's men are going house to house, kitchen by kitchen, confiscating hand mills, the small stone querns that let a family grind grain at home. And the abbot takes those seized millstones and paves his own courtyard with them. The townspeople walk across their own crushed property on their way to keep paying him. Think about what kind of business needs that. A monopoly so fragile that the only way to keep its customers is to seize their alternatives and turn them into floor tiles. The legal monopoly was real. It just had to be reimposed expensively every single day. And by the end of this video, you'll see the strangest part. The man standing at the millstones, swallowing flour dust from dawn to dark, was never the one who owned that privilege at all. First, get the scale right. In 1086, William the Conqueror ordered an inventory of his new kingdom, and the Domesday Book counted them one by one. More than 5,600 watermills in a country of roughly 1.5 million people. Call it 1 mill for every 250 souls. This is the most common machine in medieval England, decades before the first windmill and centuries before the first factory. And notice how Domesday lists them. Not as the property of millers, as fixtures of manors, line items in a lord's estate, valued next to the plough teams and the fish ponds. The mill was a capital asset from the very beginning, and capital belonged to the lord. Why? Because by the standards of that world, a water mill is a factory, a stone foundation, a timber body, gear wheels, a drift shaft, bearings that must survive years of grinding torque, and above all, the water itself. You have to raise the stream with a dam, carry it to the wheel through a cut channel, and spill the excess in flood season. Manorial accounts put the cost of building one at 10 to 20 pounds. Hold that against a wage. A skilled carpenter earns 4 or 5 pence a day, so even the cheap version of this building represents years of his total earnings, and the expensive one more than a decade. A peasant cannot save that. So the Lord builds the mill, and then he reaches for the law to guarantee the return on his investment. That law is the soak. Everyone within the manor owes suit to the Lord's mill. In exchange for grinding, the mill takes a share of the grain itself. That share is called multure, and the rate depends on what you are. Villeins, the unfree, commonly pay around 1/16 of what they bring. Free tenants might pay as little as 1/24. Notice what almost never changes hands here. Coin. The mill's income is grain. Your cash box is a barn, which means your revenue rises and falls with the harvest, exactly in step with your customers' fortunes. And neither of you controls the weather. Now go down into the hidden lines of this ledger, because that's where the real story lives. The heart of the mill is a pair of stones, a fixed bedstone, and a runner turning on top of it. And the best stones do not come from England. They're cut from volcanic lava in the Rhineland, shipped across the sea, hauled up the rivers by barge. Manor accounts record single imported stones costing £1 and more, roughly a year of a labourer's wages for one wearing part, because that's what it is, a wearing part. The stone grinds itself thin, needs its grooves recut again, and dies after a few years of work. And on the day it cracks, your monopoly stops. Suit of mill does not deliver customers to a broken machine. The peasant carries his grain to the next manor, and every day of silence is revenue. You never get back. The second hidden line is the water. The dam and the channel demand constant maintenance. If a winter flood tears the dam open, you haven't just lost a structure. You've lost months of grinding while the repairs drag on. In a dry summer, the stream shrinks, the wheel slows, and the sacks pile up at your door. So look at your position. Honestly, your income is indexed to the harvest. Your capacity is indexed to the rainfall. You control neither. So who actually runs this machine? Here is the question that turns the whole story inside out. The Lord does not stand at the millstones. He leases the mill to an operator at a fixed annual rent, what the records call putting the mill at farm. Those rents run from £2 to £5 a year and higher on a busy stream. Now watch the mechanism closely. The more predictable the monopoly's income, the higher the bids climb when the lease comes up. Competition hasn't been abolished. It has moved. You are not competing for customers. You are competing for the contract against every other miller in the district. And with every round of bidding, the monopoly's future profit is converted into rent and delivered in advance into the Lord's strongbox. The legal monopoly was real, but it was a monopoly rented out at auction. And an auction is a machine for handing monopoly profits to whoever owns the asset. What's left for the miller inside that structure? Margins, and the art of defending them. You grind the mulch grain and sell it as flour, keeping the spread. You farm the mill pond. Domesday records mills paying part of their rent in eels, thousands of them, because a mill pond is a free protein farm sitting right outside your door. And from the 13th century, you sell the power itself beyond grain. The same wheel is harnessed to pound cloth in fulling mills, to grind bark for tanners, to drive hammers for smiths. The wheel stops being a grain machine and becomes a general-purpose power source. The clever miller doesn't sell flour. He rents out horsepower. The monopoly itself needs maintenance too, and that maintenance happens in court. The manor court rolls preserve the invisible workload of this business. Peasants fined for sneaking their grain to another mill. Households caught with a hand-quern hidden at home. Names accused of shorting the mulcher. Every court session is a border patrol for your monopoly. And notice who runs the patrol. The court belongs to the Lord. The fines flow to the Lord. Even the force that protects your business is not yours. You are renting that too. Fall out with the Lord and your legal armor is simply switched off, and there's a new machine on the horizon. From the late 12th century, a strange silhouette starts multiplying across the English countryside. The windmill. No stream, no dam, no water rights. It can stand on any hill in a country where every stretch of river has been claimed for generations. For a lord, that's a second mill and a second rent. For you, a windmill rising just outside your soak is a new address for every runaway customer you have. Your monopoly is legal, but the law cannot bend the wind, and every margin you defend earns you an enemy. The peasant handing over his 16th is never quite sure your measure is honest. One of the most fixed characters in medieval literature is the thieving miller. Chaucer's miller has a thumb of gold, the thumb said to press secretly on the scale. Deserved or not, that reputation is a cost line, because a customer delivered by compulsion is not a customer won. He escapes the moment he can. Back to the hand-quern, off to the neighbouring manor by night. The paved courtyard at St Albans is the monument to that quiet war. A monopoly that isn't enforced is a monopoly that evaporates. Time to open the ledger and close the year. No miller's own account book survives, so this is a reconstruction, built from documented prices. Take a good year first. The harvest is heavy, the water runs steady, the stones hold. Mulcher, flour sales, and the eel pond bring in £8 to £10. Against that, write £4 of rent to the Lord. £1 set aside for stone replacement and dressing. £1 for the dam, the channel, and the gearing. Another £1 to feed and pay the boy who hauls your sacks. You keep £2, maybe 3. 2 or 3 years of a labourer's wages, earned in one. On paper, it shines. Now price your own hands. The man who rises before dawn, hauls the sacks, dresses the stones, and runs to the dam in every flood, has been working for a wage of 0. Put him back in at the market rate, and the shine drops by half. Then bring on the bad year. In a famine year, there is less grain to grind, so your income collapses with the harvest. But the rent does not collapse. £4 cannot read a drought. The stone cracks in famine just as easily as in plenty. And there is the vice closing on you. Your income is indexed to the harvest. Your costs are indexed to a contract. The surplus of the good year exists to finance the rent of the bad one. And the most common trace millers leave in the manorial records is not wealth. It is arrears. Rent owed year after year to a landlord who never missed a harvest in his life. So did anyone get rich off this machine? Yes, but not at the millstones. At the title deed, the Lord collected his rent every year without grinding a single sack. He defended the monopoly's legal armor with his courts, and when courts weren't enough, with his men. And he wrote every risk, the stone, the flood, the famine, the furious customer, onto the tenant's side of the ledger. Monasteries and great estates held dozens of mills at once, institutional investors running portfolios of compulsion. The miller, meanwhile, was one of history's first franchise operators. The brand was the Lord's. The machine was the Lord's. The customers belonged to the Lord's law. What he owned was the thin margin between two stones, and the obligation to defend it every single day. Look at the mill one last time, with the romantic light switched off. What you're seeing is not a flour workshop. It's a tax collection point built on running water. The wheel isn't turning energy, it's turning compulsion. And its owner's fortune was decided before the first sack was ever ground, in the ink at the bottom of a lease. The monopoly was real. It just was never yours. It was rented. The millstone was never the business. The lease was.